the wager of the debased. How I long in the deepest, most lightless chambers of my soul to be chosen by God, not as a king is chosen, not for strength or for virtue, not for works, for my hands are empty and stained with the ash of my own burned out hopes, not by my own frail and failing will, which flutters like a moth in a storm. No, I yearn to be chosen by the pure, unassailable, and terrifying caprice of God's will alone, to be seized from this vortex, to be named, to be seen by the only eyes that matter. This is the singular, burning, unquenchable thirst that defines my entire existence, and it is a thirst that the world in its blind, banal, and chattering ignorance cannot begin to comprehend. The others, those pale, spectral figures who drift through the thoroughfares of life, they look upon me with their shallow, uncomprehending eyes. They assume, how they assume, they see a man, and so they project upon me their own drab, earthly lusts. They believe in their simple, selfish hearts that I am as they are, that I scheme for the glint of gold, that I hunger for the fleeting, hollow echo of power, that I crave the fleeting influence that passes from one handful of dust to another. They are fools, they are blind. They cannot see the spiritual chasm that separates my torment from their simple animal desires, and their assumptions do not end there. In their most profound, most insulting, and most heartbreaking act of blindness, they assume my past is as their own. They conjure a phantom image of my childhood, a warm and painted fiction of a loving home. They see a world that must have been a hearth, a mother's soft hand, a father who sacrificed his own trivial for so that my dreams might one day take flight and become reality. They, in their saccharine storybook world, assume I was loved as they were loved. They assume that my parents, like theirs, created me as an act of love to make my own choices, to live my own life, to be a separate, sacred, and sovereign soul. Oh, the madness of it! The grotesque, howling irony! Nothing could be further from the unhallowed truth. I was not born of love, I was quarried. I was hewn from the rock of their own colossal, gnawing emptiness. I was not a child, I was a component. I was a single necessary brick in the grand, fraudulent facade of their lives. In the depths of their minds, in the cold, calculating recesses of their souls, I was created for one purpose: to fulfill their perfect, desperate illusion, an illusion of completeness, an illusion of perfection, an illusion of blamelessness. I was to be the living, breathing, and utterly silent proof of their hard-working, unassailable virtue. My will was a defect, my dreams were a heresy, my needs were an indictment. My very humanity was a stain upon the sterile perfection of their design. And here, in this blackest part of the tale, lies the true vampiric horror. Here is the secret that would shatter their simple, ignorant minds. My parents' success, their sense of self, their very worth, was not built alongside me. It was built upon me. It was built from me. Their success was in my debasement. It was a ghastly spiritual alchemy. For every step I was forced to take down, they rose. Further I was plunged into the oblivious, suffocating abyss of my own despair, the more their own sense of purpose grew. My silence fed their narrative of peace. My obedience fed their illusion of control. My sorrow, my isolation, my non-existence as a person, was the dark, rich soil from which their never-satisfied egos drew their sustenance. They were ghouls, feeding on the spirit of their own child, and their hunger was, and is, absolute. I was the mistake that by my very suffering proved they were not, and so here I stand, a legacy of the void, an unwitnessed soul, a straw man awaiting the fire, a ruin deliberately and meticulously crafted by the very architects of ruin who were sworn by God and nature to protect me. This is my reality. This is the truth that festers beneath the calm, pale flesh the world mistakes for a man. Now I ask you, I ask the void, I ask God, what is the purpose of such a creature? What is the divine calculus in creating a soul only to have it so thoroughly, so systematically, so intentionally devoured? And here at the precipice of my own sanity I find one last, terrible, and glorious wager. For God to choose me, for God in his infinite silent mystery to reach past the kings, the prophets, the wealthy, the loved, and the whole, and to plunge his hand into the very bottom of that oblivious abyss, to close his fingers around my shattered, unwitnessed, and debased soul, for God to choose me of all others. This act, this singular, defiant, and divine act of reclamation, would not only complete me, it would not merely be a balm for my own pathetic, screaming wounds. No, it would be so much more. It would be the final, irrefutable, and thunderous completion of the very definition of God himself. To choose a saint, that is simple justice. To choose a king, that is simple strategy. But choose the ruin, to choose the mistake, to choose the hollowed out, devoured, and debased soul that was designed only to be a monument to another's vanity, that would be the ultimate unanswerable proof. It would be the act that defines omnipotence. It would be the very signature of an omnibenevolent, all-present God. It would prove that his gaze reaches where no other gaze can. It would prove that his power is not in rewarding success, but in redeeming absolute intentional failure. This, then, is my final plea. This is my challenge to the cosmos. If God chooses me, he is not just completing a broken man. He is completing reality itself, independent of my existence. He is proving that the system is not a cold, indifferent, and chaotic miasma, but a story, a purpose, a design where even the deepest, darkest, most agonizing debasement can become the canvas for the most profound, world shattering, and glorious act of divine, impossible love. Let him choose me, and let all the world, let all those others who assumed and who slandered, finally, for once in their blind, wretched lives, behold